Hello, it's Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, and today I'm here to do an unboxing of the new reprint of the Touchstone Tarot by Cat Black. So this is a new release from US Game System, or I should say a re-release, because this deck was originally released a few years ago and it has been on my wish list for a very long time. I have Cat Black's Golden Tarot deck, which I really love, and I've been trying to get my hands on the first edition of this, and then when I found out that this edition was coming out, I decided to go ahead and just wait for it, and I pre-ordered it, and I am super excited because now it's here. So the box is really lovely. It is a two-piece box. It has beautiful colors, beautiful accents all over it. You can see the name of the deck here, gorgeous little kind of shiny gold accents. Just a beautiful box overall. It's a nice two-piece box, really sturdy. It does come with a nice little guidebook, which we'll take a look at here in a minute. And then the cards fit perfectly within the box, and they do come in plastic wrap versus the little paper wrap. So that's kind of nice because sometimes a little paper wrap actually causes damage to the cards. I did go ahead and slice this open, but I didn't actually take them out yet because I wanted to show you that it came in plastic wrap. So let's see here. So the cards are, of course, gold gilded. I really don't like that gilding. However, I do have to say that in looking at this deck, it does actually really match pretty nicely. So this might be one where maybe I leave the gilding on. It has a really interesting multiple texture to it. So that's kind of interesting. The cards are quite thin and flexible, which is really nice. And the backs are quite pretty, and they have a kind of metallic gold to them as well. And of course, as per usual, US Games has stamped their copyright on the back. It's on the bottom and the top here. However, it is really unobtrusive this time, so small miracles there. The cards are quite large. They are actually more oracle size than they are tarot size. Now, I don't have, like I said, the original edition or the first edition of this deck to do any sort of comparison. I really wish I did, and I will be on the lookout for anybody else who has a comparison video. If you have one, please let me know in the comments below so I can take a look. It does have in feeling it this little gold border, which is a little metallic-y border. Actually, you can feel the overlay on it, which is really interesting. So it's definitely like its own little thing. You can feel a little ridge along the inside. So we have the maroon border on the outside here, and then we have a lighter border on the inside and a gold border here as well, which is kind of shiny. And then we have what looks to be like a faux gold little title area at the bottom. So that's a lot of border. Like, I don't know how I feel about that. That's a lot of border. But let's go ahead and we're just going to take a quick flip through because I'm not doing like a full walkthrough. I just want to show you the deck. I just really wanted to talk about kind of what this new edition was going to look like. So here we have the Fool, the Magician. I do really like the artwork in this deck. Again, like I said, I wish I had the first edition to compare it to. So somebody else will have to let us know if there are any changes in the artwork. Beautiful Empress. I really love her. I really enjoy the kind of medieval artwork that's in Cat Black's works. Here we have the Lovers, which is beautiful. The Chariot. I really like that Chariot. We don't see the horses that we usually see, right? But I think she's really beautiful. Wonderful Strength card. Very traditional looking. Lovely Hermit card. Beautiful Wheel card. We have all of the elements represented there. You know, we have the bull and the lion and the bird and the angel, which is kind of nice. It's a pretty card. Justice is really beautiful. So here we have the Hanged Man. And he's not upside down, but he's definitely like that idea of the, you know, the crucified Christ, which is really interesting. Death card. Temperance. You don't get much of a sense of alchemy in this Temperance, but it's really a beautiful, very on point with the art style of this deck, right? Here we have the Devil, the Tower. I like how the crown is what's falling off the tower. That's kind of interesting. Beautiful Star card. Should have warned there is nudity in this deck. I do quite like this Moon card as well. It's a little bit of a deviation from what we traditionally see, but again, very in line with this particular art style. The Sun card, I did see pictures of this one. That one's really not my favorite, but I mean, again, it is in line with the art style of this deck. I feel like the borders were different on the first edition. This might be one that I end up taking down to just the artwork again. Oh my goodness, why do I feel the need to do that with all my decks? Because I feel like sometimes, although these do look like a picture, right? They do definitely look like framed works of art, which I do kind of like that. Here we have the Ace of Wands with the angel, which I really like. Two of Wands. And it's looking like all of the wands so far, they're all in red, which I do really like that. Here's the Four of Wands. I really love this kind of old style artwork as well. I do believe this is like digital collage because I think it's various works of art kind of collaged together. Seven of Wands. Probably should have like investigated more before I did this, but I was excited about it and really just wanted to jump in. I really like this Nine of Wands. I love all the different textures that we see here in the cards. I really like the use of the red in all of their clothing. That's really interesting. I assume that was probably in the first edition, and because I don't have it, I never really noticed. Beautiful Ten of Wands. I love that she's holding her load, like she's holding all of her branches there, but she doesn't look like particularly like burdened, like way down. She's got her responsibilities and she's taking care of them, but she's not necessarily like collapsing under the weight of them. I think that's really interesting. Page of Wands, Knight of Wands. Very beautiful Queen of Wands. She's got her little cat there. And King of Wands. I mean, she looks a little bit younger, but at least they don't look like super, super young, which I like. So here we have the cups, and it looks like, are we going to have blue throughout? I love that. Really love the color coordination in the minors here. The Three of Cups with all their blue dresses. Four of Cups. Five. Very traditional Six of Cups. Seven. Again, we're picking up all that blue in their outfits. I think that's really lovely. The Eight. The Nine. Ten of Cups. Very traditional looking. But again, you would expect a traditional looking, you know, art. You would expect traditional in this particular deck. Our Page. Our Knight. The Queen. Again, she does look quite young. He looks a little bit older. That's good. The Ace. I do really like the angels for the aces. I think that's a really cool touch. The Two of Swords. So are we picking up yellow now? It looks like we see the yellow in the yes, yellow. I love that because these color associations are right in line with my own. So that's really wonderful. Six of Swords. I guess we're going to do a full walkthrough because I'm just going to flip through all the cards. The Eight of Swords. I really like this Eight of Swords. I like the fact that like she's bound, but she's very loosely bound, right? And her hands aren't even tied. So she could totally get out of that, lift her blindfold up and move on. I think that's really wonderful. Very traditional Nine of Swords. It's definitely a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, obviously here. At least there's not a ton of blood. I like that. I like that there's not a lot of blood. You know, the end of things in the mind. Our Page. Our Knight. Queen of Swords. Now she looks very much like a Queen of Swords to me. Isn't she gorgeous? Our King of Swords. And then the coins with the green, I just love that. And I really love the angels as the aces. I think that's beautiful. And our Three. Our Four. I like this 4 of coins because we definitely get the idea of, you know, bringing stability to your resources, but she doesn't look like she's necessarily hoarding them, which I think is kind of nice. 5 of coins. Or 6. Definitely get that idea of charity there. 7. She's watering her plant. I think that's beautiful. Or 8. Again, very traditional. Here we have the lady with the, what is that? The falcon. Very beautiful. And the 10 of coins. Oops, stuck together. Page of coins. Our knight. Our queen. I always look to her. I do quite like her. She's a little on the young side, but I think she's beautiful. And our king of coins. Very handsome. Love the happy squirrel card. Always enjoy those. And then we have the title card, which actually is quite beautiful. I really like the title card. So let's go ahead and take a little flip through the book. So it's just a little guidebook, of course. Does fit in the box, so that's kind of nice. Touchstone Tarot, 78 friends to hold in your hand. I like that. That's lovely. So here's a little bit of the introduction. So I'll go ahead and read this just in case, you know, you're unfamiliar with this deck. So it says, I first created Golden Tarot, which is her other deck, which I do also have, in 2000 as an online project, a digital collage deck of early Renaissance artwork following Rider-Waite-Smith iconography. US Game System published it as a real deck, which she put in quotes, which is funny, in 2003, and to my great surprise, it's still in print today, and one of my favorite decks. I wanted to create a deck that was a little warmer and more human, though. Touchstone Tarot was originally intended to use on a cell phone at a time when screens were very small. That's interesting. I didn't know that. It says we are social creatures and programmed to recognize very complex signals from facial expressions before we even learn to speak. A deck of portraits therefore made sense to me. It can be imbued with subtlety and nuance that could help the reader understand card meanings without having to memorize all the RWS symbolism. My development of the deck was encouraged and supported by a small Canadian publisher and a secret benefactor. Very appropriate considering my source material was also created largely through the support of benefactors. Unfortunately, due to the global financial crisis, the publisher went bust shortly after the deck was released. Now, a decade after Touchstone Tarot's very brief appearance in the world, US Games asked me if I'd be willing to republish the deck. Of course, I immediately agreed. As with Golden, US Games understood the importance of the source material to me and allowed me to keep all the references to the art I used. My hope is that the readers find interest in the art as well as the symbolism and seek out artworks from the North Renaissance or Baroque style online and at art museums. In developing the deck, I found that if I took 2 steps away from Pamela Coleman, Pixie Smith, I immediately took a step back toward her. The influence of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck is still very evident, and there are many symbols in the deck that follow that tradition. Hopefully this will make the deck easy to read, even if the faces in the portraits central to the deck don't speak to you as strongly as they do to me. My strongest hope, though, is that they do. I hope that they become your friends who will speak the truth to you even when it might be uncomfortable. Friends who give you comfort and connection. 78 friends you can hold in your hands. I think that's really wonderful. So then she talks about the structure of the deck. So let's go ahead and just read the description for the Fool so that you can get a feel for how the write-up is in the book. So the Fool, a carefree young man with a flower in his hat, wanders by a cliff's edge. A dog looks up to him. In the distance are hills and a bright blue sky with fluffy white clouds. While this card traditionally has the young man carrying a bundle on a stick, this Fool instead carries a flute. He stares away into the distance as though a melody is playing in his head and he is about to absent-mindedly start playing along with the tune. He carries a basket casually strung on his back. Perhaps he has been playing in a field, picking flowers, singing and dancing a jig with his canine friend. Now he wanders close to a rocky cliff, but is oblivious to any danger. So meanings: beginner's luck, naive enthusiasm, a hopeful journey commences. A sudden, unexpected event that may influence the matter in question. Listen to the advice of a loyal friend. Reversed is foolhardily disregard for consequences, inertia, pessimism, and unwillingness to accept reality. So just kind of a very brief basic write-up. You know, as she says, it definitely follows the Rider-Waite-Smith system. And it looks like she has the same information for the minors, although it does have, in addition for the minors, a little bit that says, you know, multiples of that number in a spread and what that might indicate. So that's kind of interesting too. Where she had mentioned noting the artwork that was used, here it is in the back. So that's really wonderful. So you can look that up too, the painting sources, because as we mentioned, these are works of art that have been collaged. So she actually includes which works of art were collaged together, which I think is really interesting. So the Fool, we have the sky and the mountain was from one painting, the flute and the fool from another, the dog from another, and the basket from another. So that's really interesting to have. You can see how all of these cards have come together. So I quite like that. I like when the source material is referenced, because I think that's really creates another wonderful layer that you can add into your readings if you'd like. So then we have just a little bit on spreads. You know, we have a basic 1 card, a 3 card, the traditional Celtic cross. Here we have a love knot spread designed. It says, I designed the spread for Touchstone because it's such an unusual deck in the way the cards read that I thought it deserved a spread of its own. Not some gimmicky thematic spread just for the sake of it, but something really useful, something that reflected the heart of the deck. Touchstone is a deck about people, so relationships readings are its strength. That doesn't necessarily mean romantic relationships. Our lives are full of relationships with friends, family, and work colleagues. You could use it when considering a new business partner, for example. Although the cards laid out may look like a cross, the way they will read will be explained in the name. So then she goes on to talk about how she actually works with this spread. But that's really interesting that she created a spread specifically for that. And it's good to know that the creator kind of intends this to be a deck that is kind of geared towards those more relationship readings. Although, of course, you know, we don't have to keep to that. You can use it in whatever way seems fitting for you. But I could see that being that it is a deck of portraits, that could work. So lovely little guidebook. Just, you know, your base information that I think would allow you to work with this deck. So here, let's just grab another deck I have. This is the Llewellyn Animals Divine. So it's pretty much standard size tarot. So you can see that the cards are quite large. They are actually closer to oracle size. And the imagery itself is almost the size of a standard deck. So it's quite a large deck. And like I said, there's a lot of border, and I get the border because it makes a frame, which is kind of lovely. And I do like that the border is not white. I do have a tendency to leave borders if they're actually colored and they, you know, make sense to the design of the deck itself. Like, rather than just being a white border placed on there, it's the border itself is actually part of the design. And you can see here that this border really is, because this is framed like a work of art. And being as this is a deck of portraits, that totally makes sense, because see, we have the maroon frame, then we have like what would be the matte board on the inside. And then, of course, the little tag underneath, which would be like if you were in a museum looking at a piece of art, you would see the title of the artwork there. So I think that overall it does really work, but it is quite a large deck. I do quite like the backs. They're very pretty. I'm not sure about the gold gilding on the side, because you know how I feel about that. I can get my hands around it, though. So we shall give it a shuffle. It does shuffle pretty nicely. It's a little bit of a stretch for my hands, but it is possible to do. Let's see, because it's glossy, you know, it overhands really nicely. And this is why I don't overhand large decks, because this is what happens. And then my cards get all flipped around. I like that even though it's quite a bit bigger, I still can riffle shuffle it and bridge it. It works beautifully for that. I'm not loving the gilding, but I may have to do my usual, just take the gilding off and then maybe trim it in a let's try not to get all the same suit here. Pull one from the top, one from the middle, and one from the bottom. So they do look beautiful together on the table, and I do quite like that they make little picture frames. But in a 3-card reading, I guess if I put them together, that kind of makes more of like a storyboard, but it definitely creates space between each card. Now, just out of curiosity, even though this isn't This one had gold edging too, and I took it off. So this is the Golden Tarot by Cat Black as well. This is also from US Games. I love this deck. This is one of my favorite decks, but you can see there is a considerable size difference in the artwork, right? So let's take a look at the 2 moon cards in the 2 different Cat Black decks. So this is the card obviously from the Touchstone Tarot, the moon, and this is the moon card from the Golden Tarot, which of course I've trimmed down. But you can see how in the Touchstone Tarot, it's definitely more about the people, right? It's more about the portraits. And in the Golden Tarot, we have more about like the whole work of art. And so here in this moon card, we see all the little animals, and the only real sort of human aspect we get to it is the face in the moon. Whereas here, she is really front and center. But we do still have, you know, we have the little nod to here's the crab here, and we have the pillars. I don't necessarily see the wolf and the dogs, but I think it's still a beautiful moon card. So here is another example where we can see the difference between the 2 decks. So here's the 8 of Wands and the Touchstone, and we have the 8 Wands here, but the primary focus really is the figure in the card, whereas the 8 of Wands in the Golden Tarot is really just about the wands themselves. So I really like that, because even though these 2 decks have a very similar art style, and even though they are by the same creator, I was a little bit worried when I ordered it that they might be a little too similar and I might feel like it's a repetitive deck. But I feel like there's enough difference in these 2 decks that I think that they actually work really well individually, and I'm thinking that they might actually work really well together too. And now that I see these together and that I've already trimmed this particular copy or this particular deck, the Golden Tarot, I'm thinking that I probably will leave these with the borders on, because they are very much portrait-like, and that really reinforces the focus on the people in the deck rather than focusing on the whole artwork of the card. So I think that's really interesting. It does make it feel like its own deck. It doesn't feel like, you know, just another copy of the Golden Tarot, if you will, which is one of the things that I was kind of a little bit not really hesitant about, because this deck has been on my wish list for a really long time because I really like Cat Black's artwork. I really like the way that she digital collages. It looks really good. I love this star card. And I really like this Renaissance style artwork. I think it's really beautiful. I love what she's done with it. I love that she's really kind of kept a lot of the traditional symbology, which is really nice. And overall, I think it's very, very well done. Very well done deck. The printing on it is quite nice. It's very dark. A lot of the images are very, very dark, but I think that's pretty indicative of the artwork of that time. This death card. I think that overall, like, the printing quality looks really good. Just love that Chariot. I really like this Queen of Swords too. She looks very serious and determined, like she knows her own mind and nobody is going to convince her otherwise. I think that's great. So that's just a quick peek of the new edition of the Touchstone Tarot with a little bit of a comparison to the Golden Tarot, just to see kind of how the artwork compares. Do they feel repetitive? And I think that they feel like there's enough of a difference that I don't feel like I've just repurchased a deck I already have, because I think the Touchstone Tarot really focuses more in on the people in the artwork rather than the whole landscape and the whole world of the card. So the Touchstone Tarot, again, because she says it's more about people, it definitely feels that way, whereas the Golden Tarot feels more about the overall energy, the overall landscape of the card. So I think it's really beautiful, and I'm quite pleased to finally have a copy of it in my collection, and I'm really excited to work with it. Thank you for joining me today. You will find links for the decks featured here in the description box below. I hope you enjoyed this video and will join me again soon for more creative tarot for an inspired life.